Although investing in properties and putting them on Airbnb can be an extremely fruitful investment, it does come with some serious downsides, and here are my top 3 Airbnb horror stories. First of all, I just want to mention that these do not happen super often, but they still have happened in the past. Number 1, we had a guest recently at our newest and most expensive and high-end property. In short, drained the entire well at the property. The place sleeps 20 people, and they had a minimum 25 people sleeping there. And I'll tell you how we knew that here in a minute. But we get a call from them and a couple messages saying there's no water, there's no water. So we sent a well inspector out the next day, first thing in the morning. The guests were not there. The inspector shows up and tells us that the basement bedroom is completely flooded and a lot of the furniture is ruined. I'm like, oh, that's just wonderful. And they go upstairs and they find a piece of cardboard that was left in the sink with the handle up. And when the water had come back on from the well, it filled up the sink and was just overflowing constantly and flooded. We also had the cleaners go out to address the situation, and they took pictures of each bedroom door. And on each door, it had a tag that said bedroom 1, bedroom 2, so on and so forth. And although the guests, when asked, said they only had 12 people staying there, they had 25 individual names totaling on all those bedroom doors. So talk about self-incriminating yourself. So we submitted all this information to Airbnb for an air cover claim, which we were made whole a good chunk of it, not all of it. But this is like one of the most awful groups of guests and stories that we've had, because it was very expensive immediately. And then also it could have been a bigger issue, honestly, if we didn't have the well inspector going out that morning. If we had waited until the afternoon, who knows how much more damage would have occurred. But it's a huge pain to replace furniture on a whim really quickly, because we had a next group checking in about 5 days later. Out of these horror stories, I didn't get much pushback from these guests compared to the other ones, thankfully. They basically apologized and no questions asked, they left without refund. Airbnb horror story number 2, and this was actually our first ever experience as an Airbnb host, which made me almost stop investing in Airbnbs. It was our first one. We launched in December of 2019, and it was slow season in Nashville. So December, January, February, quite slow. And we were just desperate to get somebody in there, and we didn't even care what the rate was. We want a guest, we want a good review. First inquiry we had was from a group for about 30 days. And we're like, oh, great, a longer term stay. We'll cover our expenses the first 30 days live on Airbnb. All is good to go. Come to find out that the person who reserved the place was not actually staying there. We had a mandatory clean that we told them that we would even pay for to go in on day 15 to make sure the house was in good order. So when the cleaners showed up, they said, one, there was a language barrier, which it is what it is, no big deal there. But they couldn't communicate with the guests because it was completely trashed. There was stuff everywhere. The cleaners said they could hardly see the floors in the bedrooms, so they could not perform their mid-stay clean. But that's really not even the worst part of the story. The worst part is upon checkout, the guests had completely ransacked the place of all of the essentials that we provide. So they didn't steal like furniture or anything crazy important, but what they did do, now remember, we just launched this place, first ever Airbnb. They took about $500 worth of, let's just say, dish detergent, laundry detergent, coffee, like all those other little things that we provide, shampoo and conditioner. They took all of it. And the place was disgusting. We had to pay for another deep clean. This is why I really don't like or prefer long-term stays that are around 30 days, because typically when you have renters or long-term tenants, they really live in a place and it's not theirs. They know they're leaving soon, so they don't take care of it as well. We did charge these guests and they did pay us out on the full $500. So we were made whole, but it almost scared us out of investing into Airbnbs further. And the third horror story is we get a call from a neighbor at this same property that I just talked about, which was our first property ever. And this actually happened about 1 year ago in 2022. She sent us a photo and it said in captions, "I think somebody is throwing a rager at your house." And in that photo, and she also followed up with a video, there was a DJ on the rooftop with a light show and a bunch of people dancing. So there was a full-blown party at this house. We called the guests, we messaged them, they did not respond. We called Airbnb. Airbnb actually got in contact with the guests, asked them to leave. They did leave, and there was some damage. There was like drinks spilled all over the wall, some vomit. It was terrible. But honestly, the worst part about this story is when we find the guest. They left us a bad review, which we ultimately got taken down, thankfully, from Airbnb. And then they also reported to Airbnb that we had a hidden recording device or a camera inside, which we absolutely do not have in that property or any of our properties. We abide by all the rules on the safety or community guidelines by Airbnb. But what I came to find out is within Airbnb, hosts are treated guilty until proven innocent when a guest reports something like this. Now, clearly they were just lying to try and get back at us for kicking them out without giving them a refund. But I had information from my neighbor, which I submitted to Airbnb. So Airbnb blocked our listing, took it down for about 7 days without notifying us. And I could not get the next weekend booked, unfortunately. So it actually cost us money. It cost us more future reservations because people couldn't find us. So that was one of the worst stories because it was twofold. There was damage to the property. We had to kick out an unruly guest, but also we got dinged by Airbnb for no fault of our own. Now, I'm sure these horror stories may not seem that bad to some of you out there because I promise you there are far worse stories that other people could tell. But I will tell you that if you're looking to get started in Airbnb, it is an amazing investment strategy, an amazing business to be in. However, it is hospitality. It does come with caveats. It does come with cons in addition to all the pros that I talk about in all my other videos. You will have unruly guests from time to time. It's best to try and mitigate it from ever happening in the first place. So asking certain questions, not allowing instant book for people that don't have established reviews. And then also when guests do inquire to book, make sure they are not local. That has been, out of all the bad stories that we do have, that has been the case 90% of the time. It ends up being someone local staying there, saying that they're just looking for a staycation or it's like a family birthday and they wanted a common place. Just decline pretty much all of those reservations to avoid the headache in the future. A few things that you can do to mitigate some of this on your own, if you don't have a neighbor that happens to see something happening and call you, is you can use some things such as Noise Aware or Minute, and they detect certain things like noise levels or even smoking in some cases. There's lots of different products out there where it can notify you or even just notify the guest, hey, you're being loud or noisy, please keep it down. And then of course, having a security camera outside the home facing away from the entrance of the property. That way you can at least monitor if there are too many guests showing up, or if there is a complaint, you can check the records in the security camera. If you have interest in learning more than just how to avoid parties and things like that, but more so along the lines of getting started, where to find the right market, how to select the right property, and how to set them up for success, and then ultimately manage them to maximize your monthly cash flow, then I really recommend you all to check out BNB Investor Academy. We have taught over 1,000 people across the world, and we would love to work with you as well. This is a very in-depth coaching and mentorship program where we work alongside you to make sure that you have all the tools necessary to be hyper successful. I'll drop a link in the description below, but I also welcome you to go to the website bnbinvestoracademy.com.